At this time, we respectfully ask that you silence all phones and electronic devices. If you wish to appeal any of the recommendations of the Commission, appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of the Commission, we ask that you fill out a speaker's card. Each side will be provided 10 minutes to present with 5 minutes of rebuttal. And lastly, if you wish to discuss the case after we have closed it, we would ask that you take it outside the building, as if you go back into the lobby area, it echoes into the chamber. This time, we would ask you to rise for an invocation by Commissioner Randolph, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Drum.
We want to thank also, Lord, for all those that have had some health issues, some health experiences. Bless them. And we thank you for our commissioners that's gone through some health issues. Bless their bodies. In all these blessings we ask. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In our packets, we have the minutes, which should be corrected for the record, of our December the 13th, 2016. This time I'll entertain any comments or motion. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, there's a typo on the Pledge of Allegiance that Commissioner Randolph did not do the pledge and the invocation. So that needs to be corrected.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd move to accept as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Dougherty to accept as amended, second by Commissioner Lauren. Seeing no further comment, please vote. Motion carries. At this time, I would ask for a motion to open the agenda for the election of officers. Commissioner Richard.
Mr. Chair, I wish to open the agenda to elect our officers for 2017.
Second.
So moved, second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further comment? This will require a unanimous vote of the Commission to open the agenda for such a move. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Richard.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate yourself to continue to be the chair of this commission for the next year. And since we've probably just did this last week, I'd like to also simultaneously nominate Mr. Commissioner Dougherty for vice chair.
And I move that the nominations be closed.
We have a motion by Commissioner Richard nominating Mr. Manella as chair and Commissioner Dougherty as vice chair, second by Commissioner Davis. We also have closing. Any further comment? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner Dougherty, as well. This is a public hearing. The public is encouraged to speak on behalf or in opposition of any of the cases presented in front of the Commission. Entering parish right-of-way servitudes and easements, we have none. Minor subdivisions, 2016-508-MSP, Parcel C into Parcel C1 and C2, Ward 6, District 6. The owner, Glenn Davis, Surveyor, John G. Cummings and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Richard Tanner. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why a public hearing is required for this minor subdivision is that this parcel C was part of an existing, or is part of an existing minor subdivision. The owner is proposing to create two parcels from one 12.884-acre parcel, again, parcel C, that is part of an existing minor 3-lot subdivision. Therefore, the request does comply with all code requirements for the further re-subdivision of the land. Therefore, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision requests.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Or does anyone speak on behalf? If you, sir, please come to the podium, state your name and address, or ma'am, state your name and address and the reason for your request.
My name is Sarah Jambon, address 403 West 21st Avenue, Covington, Louisiana, 70433. Okay, our request is that the parcel be partitioned into C1 and C2 for the sale of the parcel. We have one party here that wishes to purchase parcel C1 and another party present that would like to purchase C2. And that's pretty much it. We were adhering to all the zoning laws and zoning requirements. We have the appropriate frontage. We feel like this really, should kind of go right through. So we're just waiting on you all. I have the sale. I believe the reasoning for the questioning was that there was an earlier partition of parcel A that was a sale, and that parcel was actually sold to the person who purchased parcel B. And I have all the copies of the cash sales of those for you want, but if you want those. But those two parties are the same, who
Okay.
purchased A and B. So really, it's kind of a preservation of actually that road because it's keeping the parcels large and larger than the zoning requirements. And like I said, but I have the purchase contracts for all of those if those are required as well.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none at this time, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, since the staff does not have any, they concur with this, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-521-MSP, Parcel A into Parcels A1 and A2, Ward 2, District 3. The owner, Juanita Mizell, Surveyor, Land Surveying, LLC. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why a public hearing is required for this minor subdivision is that parcel A is is it part of an existing minor subdivision, and proposed parcel A2 does not meet the minimum road frontage for A1 zoning of 300 feet. The owner is proposing to create two parcels from one 23.15-acre parcel. Parcel A, that is a part of an existing 3-lot minor subdivision. Proposed lot A2 does not meet the minimum road frontage required for the A1 zoning district of 300 feet. However, the lot is over 3 acres in size and is more than 320 feet at its widest point. Therefore, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision. However, if the commission decides to approve this request, a waiver of the regulations are required relative to the lot width issue, and a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the commission. 8 members is needed in order to approve pursuant to 40-100 waiver of regulations of subdivision ordinance 499.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you would please come to the podium, state your name and address, and your reason for the request, please.
Thank you. My name is David Holloway. I represent Ms. Mizell. I'm with Smith & Co. Real Estate, her real estate broker, and my address is 82212 Highway 25, Folsom, Louisiana, 70437. And just kind of give a little background behind the request on this, if that would be okay. Originally, when Miss Juanita and her late husband acquired the property, parcel A2 was originally a parcel of record by itself. They had acquired the other properties as well, and when they did a previous minor subdivision, they inadvertently brought the 3.28 into the minor sub, and now need to bring it back out, is why we're making the request. One thing I would like to note, Green Thumb Lane is a parish gravel road, and it does touch the back end of the lot that we're trying to bring back out and make it a lot of its own. So yes, it doesn't meet the frontage requirements, but technically it does have road frontage on 2 parish-maintained roads. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis. Or, excuse me, Commissioner Willie.
Yes, I'm real familiar with this property. I'm familiar with this property.
We're not on.
Move for approval.
Motion
I'll
by
second it.
Commissioner Willie to approve, second by Commissioner Casabon. Any further comment, Commissioner Casabon?
No, I am familiar with this area too.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Willie to approve, second by
That is
Commissioner...
with the waiver.
With waiver.
With the waiver.
With the waiver. Second by Commissioner Casabon. With waiver, it will require 2/3 majority vote. Please vote. Motion carries. Petitions, requests, we have none. Entering the Tammany Trace, we have none. Revocations, closing review, we have none. Re-subdivision review, 2016-512-MRP. Town of Lewisburg, Lot 17, and portions of Lots 15 and 16 into Lots 17A, 17B, and 17C. Ward 4, District 4. Petitioner, Warren Davey and Richard Palchow. Surveyor, Ellis Land Surveying, LLC. Owner, Warren Davey and Richard Palchow. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Michael Lorino. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I refer you to the survey that's attached to the staff report, behind the staff report. Warren Davey, who owns all of Lot 17, which is a long and narrow lot typical for this subdivision, while Richard Polchow owns portions of Lots 15 and 16 that front on Magnolia Avenue. Mr. Polchow wishes to purchase a center portion of Mr. Davey's Lot 17 to add to his property, which leaves Mr. Davey with 2 acres for which he wishes to re-subdivide into a north and south parcel, proposed 17A, which is going to front on Copel, and 17C, which is going to front on Lake Pontchartrain with private drive access. Parish code requires a minimum lot width of 150 feet for the A2 zoning. However, as noted above, the subdivision is very old, and long and narrow lots are typical for this subdivision. Additionally, proposed lot 17C does not have public road frontage required by code. Therefore, if the commission decides to grant this re-subdivision request, a waiver of the regulations are required relative to the lot width and public road frontage issues, and a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the commission, 8 members, is required to approve pursuant to Section 40-100, waiver of regulations of subdivision ordinance 499.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Sir, if you come to the podium and state your name and address.
Warren Davey, 529 Twin River Drive, Covington, Louisiana.
And the reason for the request, sir?
Like Mr. Keller said, it was a long, narrow lot. It's about 89 feet wide, and it's about 1,600 feet long. And it just, my neighbor would like to increase the size of his property, and it would make sense to have, we actually wanted to make it larger, but complying with the 1 acre requirement. That leaves 1 acre at the top that on Copel and 1 acre facing Lake Pontchartrain.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request?
Yes, I'm Steve Skog, and I'm the real estate broker speaking on behalf of Mr. Polchow. And do I need to state my address?
Or your business address, whichever you prefer.
His address is 140 Magnolia Lane, Magnolia Avenue in Mandeville. Mr. Polchow is in support of the resub. He just would like it to be subject to his acquisition of that additional land. The only concern he has, they don't have a firm agreement on acquiring that. There's also a request, and they're working this out between Mr. Davey and Mr. Polchow to acquire this 25-foot common use and add to this 60-foot at the bottom of the lot. And Mr. Davey would consider, widening his lots in order to grant Mr. Polchow a little more land. And in addition, that would help Mr. Hanson, who lives in the back, and Mr. Polchow would grant Mr. Hanson, who lives on this back side of Lot 18, an easement to get to his property as well, as they've been long-term neighbors over the years as well. So he's just trying to work out a little extra acquisition of the land. So he supports the petition. He wants the land, but he just would like it subject to his actual acquisition of it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Ron, did you have a comment?
Yes, sir, I do. This is kind of new information to me. This was not presented to me as this way. Typically, when we do re-subdivisions, you as the commission approves them and we record them. If he wants to hold the recordation subject to some type of purchase agreement or act of sale where we can record it simultaneously with the purchase of the property, we have done that in the past before, but I think he would need to make that as a condition. Additionally, he made some comments about acquiring some additional land. It's okay to acquire a right of servitude, I guess, if he needs that for additional access to his property. I don't think he needs it, but he certainly can't make a further acquisition of property because the A2 zoning does require 1 acre minimum, and the proposed lots, again, 17A and 17C are exactly, I believe, 1 acre in size. So he couldn't really purchase any more additional property because it would violate the A2 zoning requirements.
Thank you for the clarification. Is there anyone else, again, in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Please, sir, come to the podium, state your name and address.
My name is Bill Hanson, and I live at 516 Copel Street. It's the tract of land that's actually adjacent to the proposed re-subdivision, to the west side of it, I should say. And I've just had, my wife Patty and I have had several questions about access to our property, because that basically, without this common alleyway that's proposed that would come in and either give us a servitude or something, we have no way to access utilities to the back part of the property, be it gas or telephone or electricity. We do have a common driveway that runs down the center of the property, but it's only a driveway and it's not a access road. And I in no way have any objection to Mr. Polchow annexing that piece of property to his piece of property, and it would so benefit us if either he could increase the size of that annex so that it encompasses that servitude, or enable us to get some type of right-of-way so that we can cross that property and access ours. We haven't had a lot of time to study this. We just received these plans in a short time ago, and we'd like consideration on those points. I'm not in any way opposed to Mr. Polchow's acquisition. We're entirely in favor of that, but we have a drainage situation on that property, and we'd like to know who's going to maintain the drainage. And then also there's a servitude along that line that I don't know what it's for, actually, and it doesn't continue into lot 17C, and that makes me suspect that it might be compromised or built over or filled in. And that's the only part of the drainage system that's operating to relieve some of the flooding situation on our property. So at this point, we just have several questions that haven't been answered along with the re-subdivision, but in no way do I want that to affect Mr. Polchild's acquisition of that lot for his purpose. I would, like to have some access to that common alleyway. The common alleyway was originally put there to service both pieces of property. It was basically like a double-wide strip of property. And Mr. Warren Davey bought the east section of that property, which basically blocks us from that common alleyway. And that common alleyway is only about 200 feet off of Magnolia Street, where Copel Street's some 1,500 feet off of that back property. So it would be to our advantage to access utilities through that common alley one way or another, whether it would be with Mr. Davies' blessing or with Mr. Polchild, that seems agreeable to allowing us to go through there. And then if he acquires that section, that would also square off his property as well.
Thank you.
That's basically all I have on that.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Ron, you had made a comment, the fact that new information was provided this evening, but you and your staff hadn't had opportunity to
No, sir.
review.
And in light of this gentleman's comments, which bring up some potential other issues of concern, I would strongly suggest that you postpone this till the next meeting. We're not going to have an opportunity to meet with the applicants as well as this gentleman here, maybe a member of our engineering staff for drainage purposes, and kind of go over it and hopefully have a plan of action for the next meeting.
All right.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to make a comment regarding this case?
My name is Bill Jordan. I live at 125 Hickory Street, which is to the west side of this property that we're talking about. For the past, we have always had some problems with drainage through here since Mr. Davies filled this excessive piece of property and clear-cut it. Water continues to drain to the west side, which goes to Hickory Street and goes through quite a few people's property. And I guess the other thing is that when we first had this notice posted, we tried to get in touch with the parish, which all of this happened over Christmas and New Year's. So it had a 15-day time limit on the posting, and out of those 15 days, the parish was actually closed in the neighborhood of 10 days. So by the time we got a hold of the parish and got to talk to them, they said that we didn't have any legal right to preview these plans prior to this meeting. So how could we come here as the people of Lewisburg and make a decision like this if we can't look at what's proposed to be happening until we get here tonight? You know, we have no idea what this was all about until we got here. So, I mean, you know, it just doesn't seem right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? At this time, I'd close it to the public, and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
I think I'll make a motion to postpone, let Ron and the staff review the process, and let these other individuals kind of think about what's going on and everything, gives them more of a chance. So I'll make a motion to postpone.
I'll second. Motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone.
To next month.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. And that is for 1 month, correct? Correct. So we have a motion by, pardon? Next meeting. Motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone until our next planning meeting, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. If there are any further comments, please vote. Motion carries. Dormant subdivision review, we have none. Tentative subdivision review. 2016-533-TP, Perilou Trace, Ward 1, District 1, developer owner, Perilou Properties, LLC, engineer, Arrow Engineering and Consulting, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff comments for planning. Item number 1 has been addressed and satisfied by the staff. Item 2, Section 40-032.0 of Ordinance 499 only permits a maximum cul-de-sac length of 700 feet, and since the proposed street exceeds that requirement, the developer is seeking a waiver of the cul-de-sac standards. If the commission recalls, this case came up before them 2 or 3 months ago under tentative, and you guys denied it because of the cul-de-sac issue. They decided to reapply and come back with a, I guess what they call a hybrid turnaround, or at least a slowing down of the traffic midway through that roadway. I refer you to look at the tentative subdivision plat where it shows that new design. Also, as an informational item, Parish Code requires a land clearing permit be applied for and obtained through the Department of Planning prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. The staff would recommend approval, subject to the developer complying with all comments. And in addition, if the commission decides to grant the tentative subdivision request, a waiver of the regulations are required relative to the cul-de-sac issue pursuant to Section 40-100, waiver of regulations, 499, which requires a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership, which is 8 members, to grant said waiver. Department of Engineering has some comments.
Comment 1 and 2 can be disregarded. They're made in error. Comment 3 on the drainage, they need to show a cross-section for the ditch to determine adequate maintenance area and state if it will be a public or private drainage easement. 4, include in the restrictive covenants as well as the dedication statement that the ponds will be maintained by the HOA. 5, a minimum of 20 feet is required between the existing ditch along Perilou Road and the detention pond. 6, the detention pond surface buffer, side slopes, and access servitude shall be shown. Setback requirements must be met for the sewage treatment plant site at the preliminary submittal. Traffic comments, the 80-foot right-of-way typical section and the 60-foot right-of-way typical section show an 80-foot right-of-way, but the property line or right-of-way line is shown at an unknown distance outside of the 80-foot. Is this supposed to be a utility easement? We have the same comment for the 60-foot right-of-way typical section. Number 9, the entrance typical section does not conform to the subdivision ordinance 499. The entrance of the subdivision is required to have 1 14-foot wide ingress travel lane and 2 10-foot wide egress travel lanes. Number 10, the entrance detail needs to conform to 499 and include the following information: minimum median length of 100 feet, minimum median width of 6 feet, minimum median radius of 3 feet, minimum right-of-way width 80 feet, minimum right-of-way length of 100 feet. In accordance with subdivision ordinance 499, the curbing at the entrance median shall have a minimum height of 5 inches and a width of 8 inches. The proposed auto turnaround detail needs to be redrawn to scale to provide verification that the proposed radius and 2 11-foot lanes can be accomplished within the 60-foot right-of-way. Number 13, verify with Tammany Utilities that this site will be large enough to accommodate the proposed wastewater treatment plant and the location in relation to the pond is acceptable. Watershed comments, a drainage easement is needed at the rear of the lots to direct sheet flow runoff from the pond for the retention, to the pond for retention prior to discharge of the stormwater. Number 15, include a note as to who the wetlands consultant that performed the determination. General comments, revise 30R to state 30 feet for the distance between the median curbs for the proposed auto turnaround. 17, a core permit MVN 2007-1083-EOO has an expiration date of 2007. Please provide a revised core permit before a work order is issued. Also, an updated water quality certification is required for the project. 18, this is not a preliminary submittal. Preliminary should be changed to tentative. Subdivision note, this is the same developer as previous, therefore resubmittal should be added to the subdivision name. Subdivision note, This subdivision received preliminary approval on March 13, 2007, and a limited work order was issued for clearing and grubbing on March 7, 2008. No work was accomplished, and the developer requested release of the maintenance obligation. The Department of Finance released the maintenance obligation April 26, 2013. And the last comment, they need to show the distance from Perilou Road to the roadside ditch.
Is the petitioner here?
This is Darrell Fassell, representing Aero Engineering, 237 Natchez Trace, Covington. And I'm here representing the Decatus in this project. In regards to the comments, I guess the biggest thing, we revised the plan to show a turnaround, and the turnaround shown is very similar to one that's in place in one of the latest phases at Money Hill. So that's where we got that from. And so the biggest thing, we still need the waiver for the 700 feet because it's not an actual cul-de-sac, but it is a turnaround that y'all have accepted. And so that's the first thing. In regards to the comments from Department of Engineering, for some reason we didn't receive these comments via email or by hand delivery. We picked up the comments from planning, but we didn't receive all these from engineering. And I guess there's some confusion on my part as to which comments you would address at tentative and which ones would be addressed with a preliminary plan, because normally we turn in our drainage calculations and drainage plan at preliminary, not tentative. So.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the review? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
A question for staff. Does the proposed turnaround does it simulate the safety features of a cul-de-sac? Would it meet all the requirements of maybe somebody coming in there with a garbage truck and being able to turn around and get back out? Does it do that?
I believe it's designed to provide just a single-car passenger vehicle the ability to turn around. It needs to be revised to show correct dimensions on it so that we could really be able to tell whether or not it can accommodate vehicles turning around. Right now, as it's drawn, we're not able to determine that.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about that, obviously, for the safety features of that. A question for Darrell? I'm also a little concerned that your wetlands permit expired 10 years ago. Are you going to have any problems with that?
I think.
Were you extending that every year, or?
No, it's in the process of being renewed right now. It's a process, and it's already been submitted, and I will not start any construction before I have that.
And that really needs to be more of an informational item to be taken care of at preliminary. It's not going to become a factor until after they get preliminary approval, and before they get a work order after preliminary is when they're going to have that figured out. So really there are some informational items in here that don't necessarily have to be addressed at the tentative stage.
Okay, it just seems like a lot of items you still have on the checklist here.
As he just said, I think most of them are informational at this point, and they'll be addressed in preliminary.
The auto turnaround that they're proposing, in theory, it'll work. It looks like, I think it's a good idea. It just needs to be verified. Obviously, they're not going to be able to construct what they have drawn on that piece of paper.
Yeah,
so it's going to have to be come back in preliminary and be designed properly before they get a work order, before they start construction. But in theory, or in the idea of it should work. They're going to have to work out the details, though, in preliminary.
I'd like to see this plat come back. Of course, this plat also says preliminary instead of tentative, correct? This is a tentative plat, right?
This is tentative, correct. It's,
I'd like to see it come back in preliminary with a cul-de-sac still between lots 5 and 20. How come you can't do that?
a cul-de-sac will, actually, I'll probably lose 2 or 3 lots doing that. I mean, the reason why we did this, we went to the engineering staff, and they said to look at the Money Hill as an example. We went out there and measured it out and tried to recreate as they have over there, and we've done that. It may not show the exact dimensions, but we will conform to that turnaround that they have.
Would this be setting a precedent that where if cul-de-sacs are needed for extra length roads, we're going to allow these simple turnarounds? Just a question.
Probably.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dougherty, any?
Jimmy covered the questions that I had, and I'm not real happy with that particular turnaround. Jay, do you know if that was put in prior to an ordinance being passed that, said that we had to have 700-foot maximum length, or we had to be able to put a turnaround in? I mean,
you're at
in the Money Hill, I mean, is that 10 years old, or?
Well, it's a through street, so it's not a cul-de-sac, so they just put it in as a feature to allow people to turn around every so often without just being on a long road.
I got a problem with it, so.
Any other questions, comments, commissioners? Any motions? Commissioner Randolph.
Darrell, do you have this list of outstanding items in front of you? Do you have it?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 1, and I'm not going to go through them all, but item number 1, where you need to add an additional 5 feet to the egress in order to provide 2 travel lanes.
No, we addressed that.
That's been accomplished,
Okay.
Mr. Randolph.
Okay, all right. On page 3, item number 12, the detail must be redrawn the scale. Has that been satisfied yet?
No, that has not.
Has not. And item 14,
No, that has not been addressed.
But item 14, in my opinion, is informational because it'll be addressed when the drainage plan is turned in.
Any further questions, Commissioner Randolph? Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I think the turnabout or turnaround, whatever you call it, that you took from Money Hill is more of a aesthetic for them and not really a functionality of this. I just don't like this. I'm going to make a motion to deny.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to deny, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Any further comments? Again, an affirmative vote would be a vote to deny. Please vote. Motion carries to deny. Preliminary subdivision review, 2016-525-PP, Ashton Park, second and third filings, Ward 8, District 8, developer owner, First Horizon, Inc., engineer, Benchmark Group, LLC, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Chris Canulette. Developer request postponement until the next meeting. Staff, any further comments? Jay?
No further comments.
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this in favor? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, and close it to the public, bring it to the commission.
On for 1 month.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to postpone until our next meeting, second by Commissioner Randolph. No further comments, please vote. Motion carries. 2016-526-PP, Preston Vineyards, Ward 1, District 3, developer owner First Horizon, Inc., engineer McLynn Taylor, Incorporated, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Developer requests postponement until the next meeting. Staff.
No further comments.
No further comments. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the postponement? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
I make a motion to postpone to next month's meeting.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further comments? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries. Final subdivision review, 2016-527-FP, Gust Island Estates, Parcel D3, quote, The Oaks, Ward 1, District 4. Developer owner, McInt LLC. Engineer, Kelly McHugh Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Michael Areno. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on December 27th, 2016. The inspection disclosed that all of the concrete roads are constructed and the road shoulders and the roadside ditches need final grading. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. On the final plat, the 15-foot drainage servitude located between Lot 224 and 225 needs to be revised to state private 15-foot drainage servitude or revised to meet subdivision ordinance 499. Comment 2, the 15-foot drainage servitude located between lots 338 and 339 needs to be revised to state 15-foot private drainage servitude or revised to meet ordinance 499. Number 3, label the pond in accordance with the approved hydrologic analysis and show on all applicable drawings. As-built water and sewer plan, note 4, provide the house connection distance from the downstream manhole as per sewer system note number 20 or remove the requirement from note 20. The as-built signage and stormwater pollution prevention plan, remove the call-outs for a stabilized construction entrance on the as-built signage plan. In general, the roadside shoulders require a final dressing. The roadside ditches require a final dressing. Wetlands, it appears through reviewing the original filing for Gust Island Estates that the jurisdictional determination that was issued originally does not include this phase. Please provide documentation to ensure that the property being developed is non-wetlands. Informational items, a letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by LDH as required by Section 4070 Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,950 linear feet times $25 per linear foot for $48,750 for a period of 5 years. Staff recommends approval of the final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line. Revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the January 10th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments established at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans. The Department of Development Planning has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Good evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, 70434. I represent the developer McInt LLC in connection with this final. If you would take a look, please, at page 2 of the staff comments that Mr. Watson just read to you. Items 1 through 5 we're in agreement with, and in fact those changes have been made and will be submitted. Items 6 and 7 were delayed because of weather conditions of the last, I guess, 10 days or so, but they're in process, and we estimate that those will be completed within the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Item 8 is being taken care of. Let me assure you that our wetlands consultant has given us a delineation confirming that all of the property is non-wet. We recognize that you need a jurisdictional determination from the Corps. We're in the process of getting that. Expect that to be available in relatively short order. Item 9 has in fact been taken care of. We do have acceptance by the utility company. And item 10 we expect to have within the next 10 days to 2 weeks. So we believe that we're in substantial conformity and ask that you grant final subdivision approval this evening.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public. Can I bring it to the commission? Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, sir. Motion to approve
Motion by
final subdivision.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Second by Commissioner Drum. Any further comments? Commissioner Lauren.
The only comment I have is, if I look at the calendar correctly, the cutoff date for submission for final was December the 16th. And I'm not talking about this one in particular. I'm talking about the fact that we as a commission keep getting final approval requests from a lot of developers. And there's 3 and 4 pages of punch list. And they all have the catch list: revised drawings will not be accepted until everything has been done. Well, if that's the case, there's no need to come before the commission. If the engineers are going to be the ones reviewing it, I mean, what's the purpose of having it come before the commission at all?
Are you talking about the last comment in the staff report, or?
Well, and I'm just talking about the large numbers of items on punch list that come before. Final to me means final. And we keep getting, this is just one. We've got another one here in a minute we're going to have to talk about. It's the same way. There's 3 and 4 pages sometimes of items that show up on the punch list that have not yet been completed or weren't completed by the submission date. And to me, that's a problem. I mean, it may not be to the other commissioners, but it is to me. And for what it's worth.
Mr. Shane or Ms. McHugh, care to come? Sure.
Yeah. I think it's a great point, and a couple of thoughts in that regard. Number one, and staff can correct me if I'm mistaken, but staff and certain members of the administration are currently studying the possibility of making final subdivision approval an administrative function so that it would in fact be examined, monitored, and approved by staff. So as it relates to the question, kind of why are we doing this, that's certainly not my place or your place to determine that, but I do think it's of interest that there are some that have observed that, in my view, final is an opportunity to ensure that the things that you approved at preliminary have in fact been done. Now, to kind of the second part of your question and commentary, which I take seriously as I know you delivered it, is that the developers do the best they can to try to get everything in order at the time of filing. And I would say that I don't know that I've ever had a case that everything has been done at the moment it was filed. But as long as we know, and I don't say this for the wrong reasons, but you have staff that has high quality. They watch very closely what we do, and they won't sign and record plats until they know these things have been done. So that typically putting up stop signs and reflectors, it doesn't mean they're not important, but the point is there's really no harm to the parish, the public, safety, etc. Now, I have seen your commission, particularly in the last 3 to 6 months. You know when there's things on that list that don't maybe fall into the category of a stop sign that hadn't been put up yet, where you tell us that you filed prematurely, or in essence, that's what you suggest. And you may not feel comfortable allowing staff to make this investigation, but I would hope that this list really is fairly typical of what you see. I hope that you would allow final tonight, again, subject to these elements being completed to staff approval, but I also suggest that maybe this commission might look into the discussion about how final should be handled in the future.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shane. Mr. McHugh.
Could I say one pug about the process? The reason you're seeing all of these, and those three developments you're looking at with these items, they're all drafting changes. Majority of them are drafting changes. That subdivision has its street signs even in, okay? What happens if, when we do preliminary, or we do tentative or preliminary, we submit to the parish, they mark up the plans and they send them back to us, and we make corrections, and then we send them to them, and they send y'all a letter that you look at. So those plans have been reviewed and they've been revised. For final, there's no intermediate step. We do not get these comments to 4 days before. So we don't have the availability. If Jay gave us those things a couple weeks early, we could make all those plat changes and you wouldn't see these things. But for final, they wait as long as they can for final, so there is no availability for us to make all these little plat changes. So the reason you're seeing it all on final, you don't see them on tentative and preliminary because you get a chance to revise them before you see them. But final, you don't. So, I mean, it's a process, and maybe we need to, if we can't make final administrative, then maybe we ought to move back the submittal date a couple weeks so that we would have a chance to get staff comments and revise them and then give them to you. I don't have a problem with that, but the reason you're seeing them is when I see them Friday, and Jay's already sent me a letter, says don't bother making any corrections because we're not going to review them. And these are, one of those is 7 comments says put the word private on the servitude. You know, it's just, that's the process. So, I mean, I'd like to see the process revived and we wouldn't have to go through all these little bitty things. So, I mean, these guys, both of these developments, all 3 of these developments, the roads and the ditches, they've got millions of dollars in the ground. And what are you missing? There's $1,000 worth of stop signs and street signs. You know, so, I mean, it's like a substantial completion on a building. Substantial completion means it could be used for the purpose it's intended. It doesn't mean that every little paint chip is set. But, I mean, final should be like a substantial completion. Okay? So, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate your comments, both of them.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, on what Commissioner Puck was saying earlier, I appreciate where he's coming from because it does seem like sometimes during final we have a lot of things, but I do understand from the previous gentleman describing that happens. And when I see these 10 different things and it basically dwindled down to a couple of little minor errors and stuff like that, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But like you said, when you have 20 or 30 different items of points, this is the reasons why we see final subdivisions. And if we just stay firm into the convictions of what we'd like to see, this is what tells the contractors and all the developers what we'd like to see at final subdivision. So, in essence, Bugger, I think there's still a need for us to see final.
Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, as a person that's been on here for a long time, I've seen a lot of finals. And yes, some of the lists are getting longer, but it's due to the fact that I feel like we're requiring maybe a lot more of the developer, and we want it to be the excellent subdivisions that we're getting. We're all human, and sometimes some things don't come out right, but for years, I viewed the final as these are the punch items that need to be taken care of before the staff. We always said we approve something subject to the staff comments, and I felt like that took the burden off of us, that we were telling staff that these items better be taken care of. You've got them written down before a final plat is signed. And I always felt that was part of the trust and expertise of the staff that we have. And that's how I always viewed, if it was something that stood out and the staff even made comments that this needs to be taken care of, that's what we did. But I don't want to say it was a standard thing that we just, staff comments, but we have done this in the past, and I still like the idea of seeing where we are, on a subdivision at final. But do we really see the final, at the signing? We just know that they've started, and the staff, I guess we could go pull the plans and see the final and stuff. But I still have the trust in the staff that work with developers that these things are taken care of. I'll make a motion to approve.
We already have a motion to approve and second. Thank you. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, I want to agree with what Commissioner Lauren said. And Mr. McHugh, I understand and was not aware that there was such a short time frame to get a response back to engineering on their punch list as, 4 or 5 working days. That, I think, puts a real burden, number one, on staff to get it turned around and checked, and then back to us with minimal items on the punch list. And I have seen reports where Kelly was the engineer, where we might have had 3 or 4, and we're talking about, the blue reflectors, the signage, and some of the stuff that we understand as a commission. You don't put those things up until you get some residents in the subdivision. It's just like putting the wearing course of asphalt on the front phase if you're working on the back phase, because it'll tear it up. But I will, certainly agree with most of the comments made by other commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions by the commission? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Drum. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-528-FP, River Park Estates Phase 1, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, River Park Estates, LLC. Engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on December 27th, 2016. The inspection disclosed that all of the asphalt roads are constructed, road shoulders are constructed, and the roadside ditches are functioning. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. On the final plat, the cross-section of MP Planche Road located on the final plat shows the proposed ditch. This cross-section needs to be revised to show the existing MP Planche Road conditions and corrected on all applicable sheets. On the final plat, revise the subdivision information section to correct the road surface from concrete to asphalt. In the subdivision information section, verify that the zoning type should be called out as SA. The typical new street section calls out concrete design. The roads for the subdivision are asphalt. Update the typical section to show the existing street design and update all applicable sheets. On the as-built paving and drainage plan, marked as-built culverts need to be corrected, inverts need to be corrected. As-built inverts for all culverts that were installed or modified need to be shown. The legend key for the as-built elevations needs to be relocated to notes as note number 5 states. Remove the call out to remove existing culverts leading to the detention pond since this work has already been completed. Revise the pond area to accurately reflect actual in situ status at the time of as-built submittal. Final inspection revealed that the finger shown on the pond is no longer existing. Include as-built elevations at the pond ditch connection and on the upstream side of the preliminary outfall to verify the detention pond is functioning in accordance with the approved hydrologic analysis. The as-built sewer and water plan, show the DEQ permit, show the PWS ID number. Provide the house connection distance from the downstream manhole as per sewer system note number 20 or remove the requirement from note 20. The subdivision to the south of River Park Estates has been renamed to River Park Crossing. Revise the sewer and water plan to reflect this. Remove the future utilities from the as-built plan. Show only utilities applicable to this construction phase with required as-built information and elevations. Include existing utilities if they are being used in the current development. The as-built signage plan and sedimentation barrier plan. In the sign installation detail, revise note 3 to call out white lettering on a blue background. Remove the note requiring stabilized construction entrance on the as-built signage plan. General asphalt test results must be submitted to St. Tammany Parish. 911 addresses need to be added to the final plat for each lot. Informational items. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by LDH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. And after the fact, unlimited work order will be required for the sewer and water infrastructure since the sewer discharge point is still pending approval. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 4,480 linear feet times $22 per linear foot for $98,600 for a period of 5 years. The staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. This subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line. Revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the January 10th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments established at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans. Department of Development Planning has no comments.
Mr. Marone. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of River Park Estates, LLC, to pick up the discussion that you had on the prior case. I would add a few points to what Mr. Shane and Mr. McHugh said. The first, with regards to that time frame that Mr. McHugh talked about and how quick the turnaround is, that problem was exacerbated in that 3 or 4 days in this case occurred between Christmas and New Year's. So when we got these comments, most of which, as you will see, are plat items, most people were not in the office, and that made it impossible for us to turn those around to meet the deadline so that Jay and his group would have time to review it before we came to this meeting this evening. I would also say that, in my opinion, the staff reports you're seeing, not just on final but on the others, are as detailed as I can ever remember, and that's a compliment to your staff. I think that they have some new procedures and systems in place where they are getting down to details that, quite frankly, we probably weren't getting to a year ago, certainly not 2, 3, or 5 years ago. So as they refine their process, we in the development community are refining ours to be responsive to that. But that is why you're seeing some of the items listed, more listed items than usual. Also, as you well know, it was not uncommon that we would be getting comments from the staff, replying to those comments up until the meeting date. And in some fact, you will remember, we said, well, we dropped some off yesterday to Jay's office, and he may or may not have had time to review them. Well, now there's a hard and fast rule, as you see here, that past that date, don't even submit. They are not going to have the time to look at it. So again, this process is evolving, I think, for the better. And as we look at how final is going to be handled in the future, there will probably be some changes there. But all of those play into the punch list items that you see before you this evening, not the least of which was the fact that these comments came in between Christmas and New Year's. On this particular item for River Park Estates, all of the work is completed. There is no work remaining on detention ponds, ditches, streets. All of the physical infield work has been done and was done at the time of the inspection. The items that you see here with regards to the final plat and the as-builts, sewer and water and paving and drainage, have all been revised. Now, they were not revised in time for staff to look at it, but in conversations that I had today going through this list with Mr. McHugh's office and his employees, we verified that all of those are done. So at the point after the meeting tonight, when we can make the submittal, they will be submitted and each of these items will be addressed. The asphalt test results were in fact submitted back on December the 22nd. Not sure why there was some confusion there, but we have now resubmitted those as well. Finally, we expect the negative bacteriological report shortly, and at that time, then the utility company will be able to issue the letter of acceptance. So we would respectfully request your approval for this project, although there are 21 comments on here. As you see, all of the final plat approval and all of the as-built are nothing more than in-office work for the draftsman to make these minor corrections, which have been made as I stand here before you this evening. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have with any particular item, but we would respectfully request your approval for River Park Estates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Matthew Allen. I live at 13058 Major Lane, Folsom, Louisiana, 70433. I remember some of y'all, it's been a year or so since I've seen you, but I've been active in the community on the river systems around here. And I have 21 items is a whole lot, but I'm going to focus on just one right now, which is lack of proper sewage discharge permits. The original sewage discharge permit was applied for to LDQ back in 2008. That is plenty of time to have gotten this right before final. It has nothing to do with just the 4 days they had for comments. This subdivision also knew but never achieved scenic river permit. The original plan was to go into a mile branch into the Tchefuncte River back in 2008. Just recently, this past year, we saw pipes being buried under the ditches along River Road from this plant and discovered that they had changed their discharge location to put it into Bogafly River underneath Hospital Mill Road without approval from DEQ or Wildlife and Fisheries. They knew this, and we understand it could have had some parish approval with that avoiding of the permits also. So they never asked for the modification. Right now, they're in the process of trying to attain it. The last permit application they put in quoted as saying the Wildlife and Fisheries did approve of it. I talked with Wildlife and Fisheries Scenic Streams, and they have not approved of it yet. So how can you have a finalized subdivision without the proper sewage treatment plant? Mr. McHugh has another subdivision in the same state over at Pruden Creek with houses being built, and yet he does not have the proper permits for the sewage discharge plant, and that one was finalized last year. So also, to say that this is going to be administrative, staff equals politics behind the scenes, not in public view. These finalized subdivision hearings are important for the public. The timeline sounds like does need to be adjusted, though. So, again, just to reinforce, how can you finalize subdivision without sewage? And right now, again, he has a subdivision with houses being built and permitted without sewage permits, so nowhere for it to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, you also wish to speak in opposition?
My name is Fred Mays. I live on 16570 MP Plunge Road. We're opposed with the entrance of this road to this subdivision. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it goes from a 3-lane road to a 1-lane road in a 45-degree angle. There's no way that two persons in two different vehicles can pass one another without the other person stopping to let the other one pass. I don't know if you have a map, but as you come into the entrance, it turns to a 45-degree right. Well, at that point, it goes from 3 lanes to 1 lane. The road's only 15 foot wide. So there's no way somebody can pass one another without somebody stopping and let the other one pass. The entrance to the subdivision is at that point. I just want to oppose this entrance.
Any further comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Marone, 5 minutes to rebut.
Thank you, Mr. Manella. With regards to the entrance, as you know, this project was approved as it has been built with the entrance that is in place. Now, there are $400,000 worth of improvements to that entrance in the ground today based on your approvals and the approvals of the state. There are turning lanes and great improvements that are in place. We built it as it was approved with those improvements in place. With regards to the sewer discharge issue, let me first say that there is no scenic river permit required. The DEQ has approved the discharge point. The issue was with DHH. There was a meeting held today, which Mr. McHugh was a part of, where that issue was resolved. If you look at comment number 21, your staff was attuned to the issue that the state may require the relocation of the discharge point, and had in there that prior to any plats being filed that issue would need to be resolved. We're aware of that. The discharge point is currently constructed at the Highway 25 right-of-way and the ditch. There was some suggestion that we would need to extend that to Hosmer Mill Road. However, based on the meeting today, we do not believe that that is the case. We expect to have approval from the state within the next several days, approving the location of the discharge point in its current location. If the state decides that that discharge point needs to be moved, rest assured that we are prepared to move that. And your staff comments and any approval you might grant this evening would be based upon just such a relocation. So that is not an issue, in my opinion, respectfully, that should hold up final. We are obligated to meet not only your approvals, but the state approvals, specifically with regards to this discharge point, which we will do, and that will be done prior to any plats being filed by your own wording in these staff comments. So we would respectfully request your approval for River Park Estates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Yes, sir. Yes, you may.
Good evening again. Thank you for letting me reply. I was online this weekend on the LDEQ Electronic Document Management System, where they keep records of everything that goes through. And their current permit says nothing about Highway 25, the current permit application. It says they will run a pipe down River Road to within 500 feet of Hospital Mill Road, and then let the discharge run through the ditches for 500 feet to Hospital Mill Road and then 500 feet into the Bogafly River. That does require a scenic river permit. And it has nothing states that's discharging onto Highway 25 in the record on LDEQ website. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wishes to speak in the rebuttal of opposition? If not at this time, yes, sir. If you may. Yes, you may.
You know, I was, in regards to the entrance of this subdivision, originally when it was on the books to have 2 entrances. One was up by Ramsey's Grocery, and one was on MP Planch. Well, since then, they changed down to 1 entrance. So we have an influx of roughly 350 houses, but most people have 2 cars. So let's say 700 cars is going to be at this one road. So since they've done all this $4 million worth of work at one entrance, they decided to disregard the other entrance. So now, what happened to that entrance? And some of the people that live there look at it as a safety issue. If something happens to that road, there's no way out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition in the rebuttal? Seeing none at this time, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
I just have a matter of correction on the agenda. First of all, it's Mr. Thompson's district, not Mr. Dean.
Thank you.
That's what threw me. I was like,
And another comment regarding the entrance, there are 2 entrances on 25, I'm pretty sure. Right?
No. It was revised. There was another entrance for this subdivision on 25 that was removed at preliminary.
what about the one that has the barricade that says closed right now? They have the asphalt in, it's right next to Ramsey Grocery. I just assumed they had, when they started building.
I'd have to go back and look at the plan, but I know
There is an asphalt, or else that was the way they went in and worked.
And that was where the original, that's where the other entrance was proposed, and they removed that entrance, and it no longer is going to connect to 25 there.
So what I'm seeing on the plan is not an entrance anymore. It's got, look like, now it looks like it has a fence across it or whatever.
It is barricaded now. It's got closed.
Yes, this is not a connection. This is something that was
I'm sorry, Jay, I don't remember taking that out at preliminary. We did that? I do not, because I was adamant about having 2 entrances.
No, you didn't necessarily, you didn't recommend that it be removed, but when the developer proposed the subdivision, again, they removed it and it was approved.
Who approved it? The council or us?
Fairly confident it was the planning commission.
I don't remember that, because I assumed because they were building, they used that, and it is blacktopped, and that, because it is not going to work with just the 1 entrance. They do need the 2 entrances, but I don't know how I missed, or if I was here that day. We're going to have to look at that.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
Mr. Marone, do you wish to make a comment?
If I could give a little bit of background on that. The DOTD would not allow the second entrance. That was the reason that it was dropped at preliminary. The DOTD would not allow 2 entrances in that proximity. They required only 1 entrance, but the improvements, the turning lanes and so forth, at that entrance. So that was the genesis of the change, going from 2 to 1 at preliminary.
So it was through the comments of the department, the highway department,
through DOTD that prompted us to make the change when we came in for preliminary.
It is much better than what we had, and that entrance is an entrance, as Shorty says, that it's 2 in and 2 out, and it is much wider, but I still say that the thing about having, You mean that the Department of Highways wouldn't let us put the turning lane and do that with both entrances?
The DOTD would not allow both entrances. They did not want two entrances onto the highway. They wanted one with the improvements around that one. That was what their requirements were.
And with the traffic study, and that's what they
And that's what the
require.
traffic study said that was submitted during our preliminary review.
So that entrance, the extra entrance that's there now and blacktopped was just used for maintenance?
Correct.
Building.
Correct. That's correct. And DOTD would not allow us to open that up.
Well, that is like rethinking a whole entranceway. I mean,
But I would point out that is what was on the plan at preliminary. So we built it as it was approved by both DOTD and the commission, and as was set forth in our traffic study.
But they do have the entrances. It is much safer getting in and out, because I travel it 4 or 5 times a day. Of course, I don't go in and out of it, but it's going to be major when we put the houses in, so.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes. If DOTD denied them to build the second entrance, and our staff feels that the entrance that's currently there, correct, meets all the requirements of...
Yeah, DOTD wouldn't allow the second entrance. They redid their traffic study to see what was warranted with all of the traffic coming in and out of the one along MP Planche Road for both River Park Crossing and River Park Estates. So all of the improvements that were warranted and installed were done in accordance with the revised traffic study that had all of the traffic going down MP Planche Road as required by DOTD.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like 14 of the 21 items are basically just simple text errors on the plat, to me. I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-529-FP, Weston Glen, Phase 2A, Ward 1, District 1, developer owner, Varuso Homes, LLC, engineer Richard C. Lambert Consultants, LLC, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff.
Sorry, my sheets got messed up. Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on December 27, 2016. The inspection disclosed that all of the concrete roads are constructed and the subsurface is functioning. The following uncompleted items at the time of inspection will be completed before plats are signed. On the final plan, a cul-de-sac and a knee cul-de-sac detail is required on the final plat revised to include these details. The drainage and access servitude between 25-foot drainage and access servitude between Lot 38 and 37 needs to be called out with its width on the final plat and all applicable sheets. A note should be added on the final plat stating that Lot 55 must have a side-loading driveway since it's not able to meet restrictive covenant number 9. A 25-foot drainage and access servitude is required between lots 50 and 51. This should be called out and denoted on all as-built plans as well as the final plat. On the drainage and grading plan, remove the sewer manholes, show upon normal water surface elevation and outfall weir including the top and invert elevations, show existing drop inlet number 24 from phase 2, include existing top of casting and culvert elevations. A 20-foot drainage servitude is required between lots 45 and 46. This should be called out and denoted on all as-built plans as well as the final plat. The title block in the drainage and grading plan needs to be revised to state that this is an as-built grading and drainage plan. On the sewer and water plans, the as-built sewer and water plan for Weston Glen Phase 2A has conflicts with the as-built water and sewer plan for Weston Glen Phase 2. The sewer manhole number 6 shows a different top of casting elevation and different inverts. The 8-inch PVC line also shows different lengths and slopes for sewer line, advised as to which as-builts are correct. The as-built sewer and water plan does not show lot number 55 having a water service connection, which needs to be reflected on this plan. The title block on the sewer and water plan needs to be revised to state that this is an as-built plan. The traffic and signage, the title block on the traffic and signage plan needs to be revised to state that it's an as-built plan. General comments, utility trench bedding test results must be submitted. Utility trench backfill test results must be submitted. Informational items and a letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by LDH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 903 linear feet at $25 per linear foot for $22,600 for a period of 5 years. The staff recommends the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments, and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. The mandatory developmental fees are incorrect in the staff report, and there was a memo that should have been distributed earlier to state that the mandatory developmental fees stated need to be voided, and the following statement substituted: no mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line, and revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the January 10th, 2017 meeting. To ensure that all additional comments established at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans, the Department of Development Planning has no comments.
Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Manella. Again, Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810, Covington 70434. I represent the developer of Weston Glen Phase 2A. With regard to comments 1 through 13, we are in agreement and in fact have made those changes. And if you have interest as to item 11, the question with regard to water service, for lot 55, it does in fact have water service. With regard to items 14 through 17, the necessary reports and approvals were actually submitted on Monday, so all of those items have been satisfactorily completed. And of course, we appreciate Mr. Watson amending the staff report as it relates to developmental fees, because none are owed in light of the fact that we had a tentative subdivision hearing prior to 2005. With that having been said, we ask that you grant final subdivision approval at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Richard.
I'll move to approve the subdivision.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Any further comments? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries. 2016-530-FP, Coquille, Phase 3A, Ward 1, District 4. Developer owner, Forest Lake Estates, LLC. Engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Michael Lorino. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during final construction and on December 27, 2016. The inspection disclosed that the concrete roads are constructed, the roadside swales and shoulders need to have a final dressing. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before plats are signed. On the final plat, a 30-foot setback is shown, is in conflict with note number 3. On the as-built paving and drainage plan, the 30-foot setback shown is in conflict with note number 3. On the paving and drainage plan, at termination of 900 feet of 30-inch ribbed polyvinyl chloride culvert pipe that runs along the west side of Lot 76 labeled drop inlet, including top of casting elevation, and show current drainage method from this point to the outfall. Either remove the items that are labeled temporary or future, or relabel these items to clearly indicate that they are currently existing. Show roadside swale invert at each property corner. The as-built sewer and water plan. Either remove the items that are labeled temporary or future, or relabel these items to indicate that they are existing. Provide the house connection distance from the downstream manhole as per sewer system note 20, or remove the required note. Show the invert elevations for the sewer lift station. the as-built signage and sedimentation barrier plan, the sign installation detail revised note number 3 to call out white lettering on a blue background, remove the storm drainage system notes, remove the call-outs for stabilized construction entrance on the as-built signage plan. General utility trench bedding test results must be submitted. Utility trench backfill test results must be submitted. Base test results must be submitted. Street name signs must be installed. Traffic signs must be installed.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Blue reflectors at fire hydrants must be installed. Roadside shoulders need a final dressing. Roadside swale ditches need a final dressing. Informational items, a letter of acceptance for responsibility, and perpetual maintenance of the operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by LDH as required by 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for the final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,650 linear feet at $25 per linear foot for $41,300 for a period of 2 years. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Mandatory developmental fees are required as followed. Road impact fee, $1,077 per lot at 25 lots for $26,925. Drainage impact fee, $1,114 per lot at 25 lots for $27,850. Fees are due before final subdivision plats can be signed. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line. Revised drawings will not be accepted prior to the January 10th, 2027 Planning Commission meeting to ensure that any additional comments established at the meeting can be incorporated into the revised plans. The Department of Development Planning has no comments.
Mr. Shane.
Thank you again, Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, 70434. I represent the developer, and in connection with staff comments, items 1 through 14 have been completed, those revisions having been made on the plat. Items 15 and 16, due to weather, have not been fully completed, but will be in short order, 7 to 10 days max. The same thing with items 17 through 19. Item 20 has in fact been completed. The utility company has in fact issued its letter of acceptance, and also item 21, the negative bacteriological report has in fact been received and can be submitted. So we're in line with staff comments, and again would appreciate your consideration of final approval for Coquille Phase 3A.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, second by Commissioner Davis. Any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. Proposed amendments to Ordinance 499. We have none. Old business, 2016-249-PP. Abita River Park, Ward 3, District 2. Developer owner, Abita River Park, LLC. Engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Dennis Sharp. A request by the developer to change the name of the subdivision to Abita Ridge. Staff.
Yes, sir. Self-explanatory. There's a letter attached to the old business item from Mr. Palmer that indicates their request for the name change.
Thank you. Is there anyone representing the petitioner? Mr. Shane? Pretty self-explanatory.
As long as he doesn't have 21 comments.
That's right. Okay. Anyone in the public wish to speak in favor? Anyone in the public wish to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment? Please vote. Motion carries. Colonial Pinnacle Nord de Lac Subdivision, Ward 1, District 1. A request to convert the performance obligation to the new owner. Staff?
Honorable Commissioners, the $1.14 million performance obligation secured by letter of credit S322949 is currently in the name of CP Nord-Dulac JV LLC and expires January 19, 2017. The performance obligation was established by resolution number 10-085 dated September 14, 2010. The new developer, Cypress Equities, has requested that the obligation be converted to their name and furnish the $1.14 million performance obligation. The work covered by this obligation has not been completed and must be extended by the Department of Development Engineering. Therefore, action needs to be taken by the Planning Commission approving the name change for the obligation.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Question for the staff, I guess. I don't know who else to ask. There's a large portion, or let me not rephrase that, there's a significant portion of that development that's just basically been abandoned for 7 or 8 years. And every day it looks rattier and rattier. I mean, they got it constructed and they put the not Visqueen, but the Tyvek or whatever you call it. At what point is something going to be done with that?
Yeah, they're currently starting to move forward with that project. It should be underway soon.
We've heard that a couple of times before.
Commissioner Richard.
I have 2 questions. First of all, Mr. Shane, can you shed some light on that?
Yes, sir, I can. I represent Cypress Equities. They're a group out of Dallas. They purchased the entire Nord-Dulac development in March of last year. I'm currently working on a financing package that will provide significant capital for the further development of the center. So I know talk is cheap, but I'm involved in events that seem to be very real that would suggest that that center has good life now, but should have even more life in the months to come.
Thank you. My second question really is to staff. Obviously, if we're going to release a performance obligation, we don't release the existing obligation until we get the new obligation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to approve. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, it has to do with, we've apparently received a letter from Mr. Shane's organization or from Cypress Equities on this, but I would have thought from a legal standpoint, this should have been in the purchase agreement of Cypress Equities to the Nord-Dulac group. And I'm just asking a question to our staff, maybe Mr. Shane. It seems like it's kind of loose, if you want to call it that, you know, we're apparently accepted a letter from the Cypress Equities and are going ahead and we're going to release the bonds and everything, which will be done after we receive the new ones, I believe you said, Jay.
Yeah, that's correct.
But shouldn't that, picking up the obligation should have been in the purchase agreement?
Mr. Shane, can you address that?
It was. That is an obligation that was assumed, and it was understood that when the performance obligation came up, that a substitute performance obligation would be provided by the new developer. So it was not an issue that was overlooked. It was understood that the parish interest would be protected at all times via bond, and that at the appropriate time, new security would be posted by Cypress Equities to ensure that any outstanding obligations owed as it relates to infrastructure would in fact be met.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Shane?
That'll teach you to let Mr. Marone go home.
Just make sure you tell my wife I was trying to get home.
You got it. You got it.
Yes, sir.
In the process of converting Cypress Equities' name to the performance obligation, which is the 1.1, will that be in the form of line of credit as well?
Well, the obligations require that there be security posted by the developer that meet the satisfaction of the ordinance, but also the review of your finance department. And so to answer the question, the replacement bonds of security will be like kind. If they're not identical, they will meet the necessary requisite to ensure that proper financial security is there to ensure the faithful and timely performance of each of those obligations.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
It can be a letter of credit, cash, or it can be a bond. Those are the three Department of Finance will accept.
Commissioner Davis.
I'll make a motion to second Commissioner Richard's motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Richard to approve, second by Commissioner Davis. Seeing no further comment, please vote. Motion carries. Is there any new business to come before the commission?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Dougherty.
Very brief, when we were talking about the parish being closed over the Christmas and New Year's, and of course they'll be closed at other holidays, and also if we have some severe inclement weather, if we ever get ice storms or something like that, the parish will close down. I don't know how the ordinance is worded on when we start counting the days for the engineers to have all their stuff in. But to me, we should only count the working days that they're actually supposed to be open. And if they're closed on some holidays or something like that, those days should not be counted in the number of days that they have to get this information to the parish. That would have solved some of the problems that we've run into tonight.
Thank you for your point. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take one last moment here to congratulate our chairman. I don't know if many of the people in this room know that Dave was the linebacker for Clemson, the last national championship team, and obviously his team won last night. It took him 35 years to recover from you, but congratulations to you and your alma mater.
Thank you. Any further comments? Motion to adjourn.